10 million in 10 minutes. I am going to show you exactly what I did to get to this amount of revenue my very first time. I've done it many times since, and I'm so excited to dive into the details with you today. Let's get into it. Okay, guys, the first thing that I want to start with is a very high level, and this is just a kind of set of frameworks. So basically, the quantity of activity times the skill level divided by your mental and physical state equals the results. Now, your experience over time is going to increase, and so your skill level is going to exponentially increase, typically. And this is going to cause this equation to work for you really powerfully, such that if you continue to put in a lot of effort, you're going to get massively bigger results, or you can dramatically reduce the effort but still get the same or similar results. And then ultimately, the better you take care of your mental and physical state, the better your outputs are going to be. And let's get into now some of the details of what these activities and skills are. Okay, so whenever you're looking at the activities and the skill, this can really break into a lot of different areas, of course, across your business. To get to $10 million in revenue, you're really going to need to optimize around each of these and really think of it as a constant feedback loop. Whenever you get kind of too strong in one area, it's going to exacerbate your weaknesses in another. So if you start to fail because of that, just remember this is a constant feedback loop. Now, for me, one of the biggest things that I found as a massive failure was I didn't niche down enough to start with. I just want to encourage you, if you're thinking, I don't need to do that, it's too risky, something like that. I just want to encourage you to find a reasonable niche that has a value to you that you would even do and you would even say you love doing for free. If you can get yourself to that point, then you really have an awesome niche that's just going to naturally, organically be something you would love. And this is going to drive you to action. Now, to the extent that you can do that, then you want to then kind of drive toward marketing and really think of marketing as both a short-term and a long-term focus area. With the long-term focus area, it really, really helps to build out a kind of a taxonomy of what you're going to focus on with your marketing. Now, we have a whole video that goes into this in a lot of detail. And the key takeaway is that you have a taxonomy, you prioritize it, and then you generate content constantly on a cadence. And you're basically hitting high priority, high payoff, kind of low effort targets within that niche area based on certain long tail keywords. Now, this long tail is going to apply not just to SEO or YouTube videos, but really across all of the different channels. Now, combined with this, if you're constantly building out CTAs and building out value adds that you can offer with these niche long tail focus areas, you're going to get yourself into a position where you can actually get a lot of conversions and you're going to build long-term traffic for free. Now, this can be combined with short-term focus around ads, paid ads. It can be retargeting. It can be newsletters, direct outbound. This can be cold calls, email, LinkedIn, building a community. I mean, the list goes on, really. But the point here is that around the marketing side of things, you really want to get this thought process through that you want to have a niche and then you want to own that niche. And one of the best ways to own it is to own the taxonomy and prioritize it effectively. And then you want to leverage that content that you're generating, and you want to do it on a consistent basis across all of the different channels that you can penetrate. Okay, so once you've done that, for me, what I found was I basically got so many leads that it blew up the rest of the business. So I kind of figured out this niche focus. I figured out the long tail marketing. And again, I basically just got to the point where the rest of the business, some of the weaknesses were exacerbated. So for me, this started with sales, but really it ultimately focused around execution. What I would say on the sales front is this tends to go hand in hand with marketing. And generally, as the entrepreneur or as someone who's a key leader within the business, you really need to understand the sales process and you really need to be able to drive this yourself as much as possible, really from day one through the end of the business. To the extent that you're driving this 100%, I would recommend systematizing and trying to automate as much as you can, but then ultimately bringing in other team members so that you can train them and develop them on the sales process. For our particular sales team, we had a lot of success from the beginning, but what we found was that a lot of the key aspects of the sales process were bottlenecked by one individual within the team. So our big takeaway to our first 10 million and beyond was that we had to be able to standardize and kind of clone that knowledge from one key person to several other people within the business, making it so that it was a little bit easier and something where instead of maybe me doing a demo directly, I would record videos of chunks of the demos and provide those to the team. That was really, really helpful. Similarly, by putting really nice collateral together and other resources, basically FAQs and guides, so that folks on the sales team could share those with potential clients. This really set them up so that they were empowered to be able to provide the information. They could be the messenger and not the message. Now, ultimately, for me, my first 10 million, the big bottleneck was the team and executing on the projects. Now, for me, this was so challenging that I made an entire video just talking about this. I feel like this is something that is really a true strength relative to some of the other areas. And it absolutely was not for my first 10 million. I suffered significantly trying to do this part. And I think this is an often overlooked aspect of the process. We have an awesome video that goes over this in a lot of detail. Here you can see I just kind of copied and pasted this in as a reference. Please take a look at that video if you're interested in attracting and building an amazing team. There's a lot of detail that took literally over a decade and a half for me to learn all of. I encourage you to take a look at it. But for my first 10 million, that was probably the biggest challenge that I personally ran into, was executing and being able to build the team. Now, what I can tell you to summarize as a really powerful output is be willing to train people and focus on their careers. Try to put yourself into their shoes and understand what it is they're trying to get out of the business, and then meet them there. Be willing to kind of step down from the I'm a big founder or CEO and I'm awesome into how can I help this person, on a personal level? How can I help them grow, and how can I genuinely benefit them from this relationship? And then ultimately, the other thing is, how can I standardize what they're trying to figure out so that I can transfer the knowledge really effectively? Some very simple things you can do are record calls where you're helping people and then catalog them in an LMS. By doing this and then creating a certification program, you can basically build a career development path for any of the key roles within your business. Again, the video that we made on the TechLaunch channel goes into a ton of detail. Highly encourage you to take a look at that. Now, ultimately, the bottom line for you to get to 10 million and then continue to get 10 million more and 10 million more and grow from there is you're going to be constantly optimizing. Now, in order to do this, I think it's really easy for entrepreneurs to forget that they need to look at the data. You're going to need to look at your metrics and make sure that you're constantly reviewing the actual data, not just what you're kind of emotionally interpreting ad hoc. Now, the other big thing that I would say is as you can kind of build out departments or teams and set up kind of leadership structure within those teams, you're going to allow yourself to be able to kind of let them run autonomously. And then you can come in from more of a just kind of unemotional vantage point whenever you're interacting with them. If you can do this effectively, you're going to allow yourself to be very constructive and work on your business instead of working in it. For me personally, this took a long time to figure out. But once you kind of get yourself into this mindset of having metrics and data, looking at individual team members' performance, and actually spending the time and understanding what a team member is doing and why, then you can see what some of the major problems are. Ultimately, at the 10 million mark, you're typically going to be putting yourself in a position where you're actually systematizing to the point where you're not really necessary in the business. In order to do that, you really need to understand what's going on day to day for each of these key roles, and then be able to really optimize each of those. And finally, what we'll leave you with here on these activities and skills is the fun part, which is basically scaling. Scaling is so much fun because now you've kind of figured out the mechanics of getting yourself to this $10 million mark or beyond. And now what you want to do is think about whether you want to continue to go deeper and maybe a little bit wider within an existing niche, Or do you want to go after an additional niche that's very proximate or highly related? Ultimately, we strongly recommend kind of one of these two focus areas as you scale. Otherwise, you're going to end up putting yourself into a very low kind of resource availability situation. It's okay if you want to do that. It's just very low probability of success. Ultimately, if you're focusing on expanding your niche, expanding your strengths, you're going to be operating from a position of strength. And if you're going into a related niche, there are higher probabilities that you're going to be successful there. Although ultimately, if you just continue to expand in an existing niche, this is going to give you the most kind of powerful guarantee or likelihood that you will be successful. Okay, so now for the bonus round, which is talking about your mental and physical state. Now, this is going to be really high level, but the main thing I want you to take away here is that if you look at this kind of equation that I put together, there is a massive handicap if your mental and physical state isn't there. Now, a lot of people who are entrepreneurs think that they're in a really good mental and physical state, but they are just barely making it through. Now, surviving and being a zombie isn't the same as being the truly best version of yourself that you know you can be. So I want to ask you and challenge you to really think about that. Are you operating at the level that you know you can? And here are some thoughts for you to just kind of dive into. Think of it as building a well and getting access to water. The water is there. You don't know how deep down it is, but it's absolutely there. I'm here to tell you, you're going to be successful if you keep pressing. But how far away are you from it? And a lot of this has to do with your skill. Think of it, again, kind of taking the same analogy with the well. Like if you have the right equipment, the right skill, then getting, several thousand feet down even may not be that challenging relative to maybe, a few dozen feet down would be really challenging at first. And so ultimately the question is like, how much belief do you have? And then how are you going to enroll in the activities to generate that skill? At the end of the day, the skill itself times the activity, that's what's going to drive everything. Even if your mental and physical state isn't there, it's really about doing the thing. And so you can see a lot of businesses where people aren't in the right mental state, but they're still successful. That's usually because they're doing a lot of the right things and they probably have a lot of skill. So they're bringing value in the marketplace. But if you want to kind of heavily optimize around generating your skill very quickly and basically driving this whole equation optimally, the big things that I would recommend are that you allow yourself to have faith and genuinely ruminate on this faith. And a great way to do that is to get around other people who are going to help you focus on your why. What is your why that is driving you to do this business? Are you trying to contribute to society? Are you trying to generate enough cash flow to support your family? Is it a combination of factors that you can basically visualize for yourself on a consistent basis? And then decompose your goals, take your actual goals for your long-term objectives for your business, and then decompose this into activities that you can specifically accomplish. And then hold yourself accountable by telling the world. Tell not just, your close friends and family, but also tell other accountability partners. For example, a company like TechLaunch is a great resource. Certainly, the main point here is that you need to get kind of external accountability that has experience and success so that you can borrow from that belief that they have that if you do these things, you will get the results. And from my personal experience, this has been extremely powerful to help me get not just my first 10 million in revenue, but the subsequent multiple $10 million chunks after that. Okay, that concludes this video. And as always, I want to challenge you to be the best version of yourself. And I want to ask you to allow yourself to believe that you can do it. I'm telling you, you absolutely can. Do you believe, and will you allow yourself to be confident and take the actions and really engage? And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.